Welcome to the Worship Probs podcast, where we aim to entertain, encourage, and equip worship and tech leaders all around the world. Look, we all know that serving in worship and production is great, but the problems, those are real. Thanks for joining us as we dive into today's episode with our host, Brian Tabor.
Welcome to episode 319 of the Worship Probs podcast. We're so glad that you are listening, or maybe you're watching. These are now going to our YouTube at Worship Probs. So go head over there, subscribe, follow, and you can now watch full video episodes of the podcast, which we're thrilled with. We're going to dive in today, those 3 E's: entertain, encourage, and equip. It's always going to be about that. And we would love it if you would do us a solid, jump over to Apple Podcasts, even if you're listening or watching on YouTube, whatever, give us a 5-star rating and a really nice review on Apple Podcasts. That makes a huge difference for us. I am thrilled in this new year to have Brian Taylor here, the man with the plan.
I always wonder what you're going to say. We've done this so many times now. I'm like, yeah, well, I wonder what Tabor's going to come up with.
Listen to that voice, man. It does me good.
It's a joy to be here. As we're recording this is actually my first podcast interview, record anything for 2025.
Wow.
And so I'm honored that it's here with our Worship Probs family. I think it's going to be a fantastic episode. Of course, we've got some great resources to share and encouragement. As always, one of my favorites, prayer concerns. And then you and I are going to have a conversation related to some direct messages that came in. We're going to talk about, hey, is our heart being in it enough? And to kind of dealing with broadcasted negativity, people that are frustrated, uncomfortable with something that's going on, and they're making their voice known.
Come on, man.
So grab a comfortable seat for this one, because I really think it's going to be great.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. And hey, as we're getting started here, let us tell you about our amazing friends at Planning Center. This episode of the Worship Probs podcast is brought to you by Planning Center, an all-in-one software that can help you organize every facet of your ministry, connect with your people, and help your people stay connected to each other. Among the many ways Planning Center can help you do that is through task management. In Planning Center, you can create detailed tasks, organize to-do lists, and even collaborate on those tasks with other team members in real time. Do you have recurring events and projects with long to-do lists? Make a task list template to save time. Have regular tasks you need help keeping up with? Set your tasks to automatically repeat at an interval of your choosing. And the best part is that you can create tasks from absolutely anywhere in Planning Center using the toolbar. You'll find your Tasks tab in Planning Center Home, the place you see all the important updates happening across your account. To learn more and get started today, visit planningcenter.com or click the link in our bio. All right, BT, so I got a question for you.
Yeah.
We were talking a little bit about what worship was like when we were growing up. Now, you and I grew up in 2 different times.
Eras,
but
that's why we call you BT1, because you were here first.
But there are some similarities to how we grew up. So these kids today, they've gotten a little spoiled with their Planning Center and their audio listening files, and it's transposed into the right key, and they've got clicks telling them when to do this and when. So when you were growing up in the local church and you were serving, what did that look like?
So as we're recording, it's a snow day here in Dallas. So the first thing that I was like, it was walking in the snow uphill both ways. Like the old, they used to tell stories. Exactly. We had to go to school with no shoes, uphill both ways in the snow. That's what it feels like when I'm listening to everything that you just described. And I'm like, we had none of it. We were talking like, I grew up I was raised by my grandparents. They were both choir directors. and choir kind of led the way in the churches that I was a part of. And, you'd get choir music. Someone would, make a cassette tape.
Cassette tape, man.
When we got super fancy, we started burning CDs, duplicating those CDs for rehearsal. Which I now know is probably against copyright law, but whatever, we didn't know then. But that was it. That was your resource. And then somebody might sit, because even the internet and Google and all that stuff wasn't what it is now. So you listened to the song, someone typed out the lyrics. So you hope that there was great diction and enunciation on the record.
Yeah. And
that's what you'd be handed. If you were a choir member, you had some paper with some lyrics, and the musicians, we got these, sometimes it was recording songs off the radio, and this is what we'd play. And then we'd show up, and maybe we would rehearse, maybe we wouldn't. Maybe sometimes we'd get to Sunday morning and we'd play a totally different song list than the one that was prepared. And say, put me in E flat, so we didn't have anybody going chorus 2, 3. We had none of that. It really was, it was the best though, because you really had to be on it. You just had to know you had to know your instrument. You had to know your music. You had to be able to just move on a dime. It was great. We didn't even have I didn't even know about the transparency, projector things and lyrics and stuff like that. We had no lyrics. Church just sang harmony because they could, picked up the lyrics because they listened to the music in their own time. It was just a completely different experience than the one that we would have now.
Do you miss that?
There are elements of it that I miss, mainly because it required a level of presence that it doesn't require as much. You have to be more intentional with it, I'd say, because it does require it. But you don't always have to be when you've got a grid and you've got the cues and the clicks and the chords and the lyrics. But you had to, that music and everything had to be internalized if you were going to be effective. So I do miss that piece. I love good resourcing. Maybe I wish that there was still a blending of it. Like the resources were a resource and not a crutch.
Yeah.
Right. I think we can very easily, I didn't get a chance to rehearse this week. And maybe we're jumping into our DM conversation a little early, but I didn't get a chance to rehearse this week. But it's okay because I've got a confidence monitor and I've got my iPad and stuff like that. And so I'll just make it work. I don't know. What about you? Do you miss? I mean, I don't know if it was how similar, but it sounded like we had some pretty good similarities in terms of kinds of music and people just kind of going for it.
Yeah, really, really similar. Our choir mostly. So my oldest brother, I'm the youngest of 5. My oldest brother, who's 19 years older than I am, was the worship pastor at the church I grew up in, and so choir mostly had music, but the worship, like the congregational worship time, my brother would be on the organ, and it was like gospel B3 kind of organ, and we would have these volunteer worship leaders, and my brother's name's Bob, and I can remember the guy on Sunday morning stand up, give me a B flat, brother Bob.
Yep.
Bob would hit a B flat chord on the organ, and this dude would just take off. Like there's no song list. And it might be a hymn from 75 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you never knew what was going to happen, and it did create a sense of anticipation. I can remember. And so my brother, I can remember a Sunday night, I'd been taking piano lessons for, I don't know, man, maybe 3 years, but it was, like written those piano series books and all that stuff. And my brother is at the organ. It's a Sunday night service. He finds me out in the congregation and like nods me over to the piano, like, get over there. The piano player didn't show up. And I was like, I'm like, you're talking to me? Like, so I kind of wander my way over there, and I don't know, man, we're on opposite sides of the stage. It was back in that era.
Yeah,
And so I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like there's like the guys up there, give me an A flat or whatever. And so my brother starts flashing numbers at me from the organ. And I don't know what that means. I don't know what any of this means. And so I get down, I'm like, okay,
what do I do with this?
That's what a 5 is. Okay. And so that's kind of how I cut my teeth. And I probably, we always romanticize things in hindsight. And, I probably would love it for a couple of services, and then I'd be like, give me my tracks back.
Right.
But sometimes I think about those days, and it was the kind of the innocence of just letting the Lord do what the Lord wanted to do. And I know the Lord can work in preparation,
Absolutely.
which we're going to talk about here in a minute, but I do sort of miss those free flowing.
Well, even being just like called over.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like how often would that happen? I mean, that's a huge part of how I got started. I mean, I was little when I started playing, right? So I started playing the piano when I was 3. So before I sang and lead worship and all that stuff, I was a musician first. So I learned to play the piano, I learned to play the B3, and then the drummer wouldn't show up. So I, learned how to play the drums. I learned to play at the bass. I was never great at it. But it's like that was the whole thing. We used to sit over by where the musicians were and watch and just sit there and take it all in. And then one day somebody wouldn't show up and they're like, Brian, you're up, play the organ. I'm like, okay. You just and that it was, it was like a musical discipleship.
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
meant there was always someone to do something.
Yeah.
There was always someone that could jump in where there was a gap, because it was like, hey, come on, you come and watch, come sit, come to rehearsals.
Yep.
We weren't excluded because we were young or because we were inexperienced. They were like, no, this is a great opportunity. And I mean, the music ministries were killer back in the day. We're from the DC area, right? So churches I grew up in, the music ministries were like, people went, now I know, like, you're right, the music guy's going to say this, but the thing people fell in love with at the church first was the music.
Absolutely.
And then the pastor got up and they're like, great, that's cool too. But they loved and I'm like, man, to be a part of that, to be raised up in it, not excluded. And there were no formal development processes.
Right. No on-ramps.
It was it could be a problem. But it was just that they saw the potential, they saw the gift, and they were like, let's go, make it happen with all the limited resources.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, we need to do an episode about this sometime.
Yes.
Yeah, we absolutely do. Well, thanks for sharing that. Guys, we're going to be out and about a little bit here. Later this week, we're going to be at NAMM out in Anaheim, California. So, and we've been praying for all the folks in California with the fires, but we're going to be at NAMM. We're going to be doing some work with Alan and Heath out there and recording some worship karaoke. And then we're going to be at the Behold Worship Conference in New Jersey. If you're anywhere close to New Jersey, there's a link in our bio for this. It's February 1st. It's just a one-day conference. Everybody's welcome to come to this. There's a link in our bio for it. Uncle Paul Balash will be there. And
hi, Paul.
We're going to be recording an episode of the podcast live there at the Behold Conference, and Kim and I will be doing some teaching as well.
I'm bummed to miss that.
Yeah, it would be good.
That sounds like fun.
We're looking forward to it. We're looking forward to it. And then Worship Karaoke Season 4, we're going to, we've got John Cassetto coming here to kind of button up Season 4. I mean, how good is that? So make sure you're following on YouTube. And again, full video episodes of the podcast are now going up on YouTube. We're starting something in 2025. It's our Worship Probs e-news. It's going to be kind of a monthly email. Just sign up for that. You can do that right on our website, worshipleaderprobs.com. Newly revamped website. There's new merch there. There's all kinds of stuff. So go over there and check it out. Link in our bio for that. And we really would love to have you sign up for the new e-news.
Fantastic. Lots of great stuff happening. Speaking of great things, do you know what time it is?
What time is it?
It's time for Prayer Concerns.
Prayer Concerns is proudly sponsored by 5 Words Media, the amazing people that bring you free church AV. 5 Words Media is also the official AVL integrator of Worship Probs. If you're a worship pastor or a tech director, you know how crucial audio, video, and lighting are for your weekly gatherings. Speakers popping, dead zones, lighting, and live streaming issues can quickly make your gathering both distracting and frustrating. An excellent worship gathering is one where your AVL systems are all working together seamlessly to help create a powerful worship experience. The team at 5 Words Media gets it. They're ministry experts who understand the details of your local church's needs and the pivotal role that volunteers play. Their passion? To deliver high-quality, volunteer-friendly solutions that align with your budget and priorities. How does it work? Well, the 5 Words proven process is straightforward. It starts with a needs assessment done by one of their skilled technicians, followed by a custom solution design tailored to your budget. Then, they handle the installation, testing, and even volunteer training. Ready to transform frustration into empowerment? Just click the link in our bio, find 5 Words Media, and kickstart your journey today. Elevate your gatherings with precision and excellence. Schedule a call with 5 Words Media now. So guys, prayer concern. This is episode 319. We've done this on every single episode of the podcast, which it's amazing to me.
I'm already chuckling. We can't even get through the end.
It's amazing to me. And I picked, so we have a couple of different branches of prayer concerns. Like the OG version is just complaints from the congregation.
Sure.
And then we've got one that's ridiculous declines. And specifically because you're on this week, I picked the one that we have called unusual song requests.
Yes.
And this is, these all come from Instagram. We asked people, what's the most unusual song request you've ever gotten from someone at church?
Yeah.
And I always tell, mine is The Circle of Life from The Lion King. What is yours? You've shared it before.
Oh, I've had a few. I think the one that I shared most recently was the Hallelujah song. That's not really about
Leonard
Hallelujah.
Cohen. Yeah, that's right.
Leonard Cohen. Yeah, it's like, ooh, it's not what you think.
It's
I think
not what you
Lincoln
think.
did a version of it, or someone did a version of it, but it's like, no, don't listen to the original. Please don't.
It's so good. So
it's very. I mean, David. Okay, get it, but
yeah, just because
it's not
it
the
says
part
David.
that we
Yeah,
celebrate
exactly.
about his life. If there's any
exactly. So these are prayer concerns, unusual song requests. So if you have other prayer concerns, like somebody roasted your team for what you did or how loud it was or whatever, send those in to us. Go to the website, worshipleaderprobs.com. Just click on the prayer concerns tab. You will always be anonymous. But today we're going to share prayer concerns, unusual song requests. So let's dive right in. Prayer concern number 1, Eye of the Tiger. I don't know the context, but Eye of the Tiger. Rising up. I mean, can you...
I'm like, I try to give, maybe it's the part of us that are like shepherds. We try to give like this benefit of the doubt for like the first 5 seconds. I listen to it and I go, I mean, is there some sort of scriptural imagery?
Right.
But I'm like, nope. I don't know.
I don't understand that.
Like,
And you can see people
Lion
probably
and the
in
Lamb is the closest I can get to
be
that.
like,
oh yeah, they're rocking out.
Eye of the Tiger. Okay,
but
number 2.
There was no other context.
There was no other context. Just Eye of the Tiger. Yeah.
Okay, but if you send these, they need to like tell us whether or not they did it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
I would love to hear if you sang Eye of the Tiger, what was your exhortation going into that one?
And who sang it?
And
those vocals are, holy moly. Okay, number 2.
It could be a Phil Wickham song.
There you go.
Like I'm listening to the vibe of it. It totally could be Phil. Totally.
Okay, prayer concern number 2. These are unusual song requests. We are family.
Okay, and I got that one.
Yeah, and they said
I'm cool with that one.
They did do it for a home group promo. We are family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Here for it.
Yeah. I'd like to hear that.
It's not as easy as it sounds.
Band, that would be a lift for the band, man.
Can see that together. Yeah. As a matter of fact, I feel like I don't know, I'd call it forced family fun now. But like the turn and greet, which some churches still do
absolutely.
it. I know it's a polarizing topic. I'm a huge turn and greet fan, even though I'm an introvert. I think it's important for people to get outside of their box in church. But when I was growing up, we used to play that song for like the family time, turn and greet time.
I love it.
I don't think we ever sang it, but we'd play. It's a pretty iconic hook. The piano.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That's a great
keys part too, man.
Yes. Back in the good old days before the guitars took over.
Exactly. Okay, number 3, prayer concern. Number 3, unusual song request. From Now On, from The Greatest Showman.
From now on, he's gonna not be blinded by. I don't know. I don't guess in a royalty situation. Yeah. Why? Okay, no context.
No context on that one. Yeah.
It's uplifting.
It is. It's a good, it's a good. And
did they do the dance? Did they do choreography too? It's the whole thing.
Yeah,
I don't know
it because I'm not
all
those
a dancer.
Background vocals, man. You got a lot going on.
Did they have a liturgical dance ministry? You know what a liturgical dance ministry?
Oh, absolutely.
With the long flowing things, which I'm not. I'm a huge fan of the arts in church.
Yeah.
But that sounds like something that you would do.
Absolutely.
We had mimes growing up too.
Nice.
I don't know if you've ever seen a mime ministry. It's pretty rad, but it's pretty rad. Listen, I'm telling you, I grew up in the black church. We did everything. We had everything.
Pretty rad.
It's pretty rad. So, I want to know, I need more context. I want to know, did they do this as song 3?
Yeah.
Or did they do it? Did they not do it? Like when the person comes up to you, what's a really good song we should sing is From Now On.
From Now On. And who sang that?
Who did
vocals
that
for that one?
From now on.
Yeah,
all
exactly.
That stuff at the end.
The range is ridiculous. Okay, so prayer concern number 4, unusual song request. I probably should have Googled this one because it doesn't really mean anything to me. You've got your finger on the pulse of the culture, so maybe this is going to mean something to you. But it says, "Hocus Pocus" by Focus.
I'm going to Google it
I
because
don't know
I
what
have
that means.
no idea.
Hocus Pocus by Focus.
I'm just going to tell you, we don't need to bring, like Hocus Pocus is kind of like, it's a Dutch rock band.
Oh, okay. It's a Dutch rock band. Maybe
it's an old song.
Oh, it is. Okay. Hocus Pocus.
Yeah. I feel okay. I'm using the Google AI thing, but it's like 1972. Okay. It was before my time.
Yeah. Easy.
Again, this is what is the reason?
Yeah. Why?
But let's just start with Hocus Pocus. Because I don't know. You said you grew up like AG church.
Oh yeah.
It churches I grew up in, and especially in Southern California, we're not doing anything close to Hocus Pocus.
No.
You're not bringing in you're not bringing in none of that.
We would have had the record for this after church, break it and throw it in the fire.
Oh
in my church.
And they might put the leader there too. They might be like, "You're out, excommunicado." Like we're done. Witchcraft, which is a real thing, but I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying, this just goes to show you. Remember we were talking about resources and going uphill both ways? Church people today have it so easy in a lot of ways.
Yes, they do.
Because if you made that song, they'd be coming for you if you made that song recommendation. You don't even have to be a leader. They're like, why you want to expose our church to witchcraft?
Yeah, exactly.
Hocus Pocus.
You used the music on a reel that you posted, and that was not
for real. That was the kind of stuff these young leaders don't know. You ever gotten called into an executive pastor's office because of the soundtrack that you used for that reel?
Oh gosh,
you haven't really lived.
You haven't lived.
I don't think that's happened to me, but I feel like it's happened to somebody that's listening. I want them to feel seen.
You're seen.
You are seen and encouraged today.
Keep going. So here's the last one, the bottom of the pudding cup. Prayer concern number 5. And these are unusual song requests. And so this one, I do believe they actually did this. And it was called "Proud to be a Christian" to the tune of "Proud to be an American."
I'm going to call the flag on the play. First of all, because your syllables are wrong.
Exactly. Yeah. You got
proud to be a Christian. I don't know how to be a Christian. No. First of all, your syllables are wrong. Second of all, please don't. Yeah. Don't take iconic songs and try to make them sacred.
Yeah, that's not the greatest.
We talked about Hallelujah.
Yeah.
There's a reason.
There's a reason.
There is a reason.
There is a reason.
But can they send us the
I would love to
YouTube
see
link?
that. I would love to see that. Please, if that's you, please send that to us.
No condemnation, no shame.
Yeah,
maybe a little shade, but no shame. Like, please, because I just want to see, and I wanted to see how many people were upset with you.
Yes.
Because that's kind of like adding like a chorus to Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
You can't take a song like Proud to Be an American and change it. It's not American to do
the video of that.
Maybe this was an international listener.
Could be.
And for that, we have grace.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But I'm a Texan. So.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
I'm all over the place. These songs.
Yeah,
what does this say about the discipleship ministry of these churches? Not to get too deep, but I'm like, can we do some spiritual formation work? We can do a listening survey. You got people in your church
you got
asking for witchcraft.
You got me crying.
And changing songs. And somebody thought that was a great idea. There weren't enough people at the table.
Can't you see like a planning meeting, whiteboard?
Oh, totally.
All these things. I'm proud to be.
Hold on. Fun fact. It was the senior pastor that made that unusual song request.
Probably was.
For July 4th weekend.
Probably was. Guys, hear me out.
Hear me out.
And I'm the guy who signs your checks.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah. Oh, so that's a great idea, Pastor. Just a couple things that I want to share. Because I don't think that's going to go the way you think it's going to go.
It's probably not.
First of all, because of syllables.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the most iconic part of the song, and you can't make it fit.
Yeah.
Proud to be a Christian. I don't get it.
Yeah, a believer, maybe probably not. You shouldn't do it. Just say no.
I think it's 4 syllables and American. Right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, don't do it. Just say no.
Yes.
Just say no and go to Slingshot and apply for another job if it was your senior pastor.
Just say no. But don't put that in your video because that's not going to work out well. You're going to cause, there's so many questions.
Oh, gosh, you guys, those are prayer concerns.
Pray for
Send yours in.
Man.
If you've got an unusual song request or you've got some shade or some clap back from somebody in the congregation over something you did, send those to us and we'll always keep your name anonymous. Well, we love to unpack your questions. We'll talk about them. And we do that in a segment that we call Sliding into the DMs. Since 1988, New Life Ministries has offered compassionate and empowering solutions to those who find themselves in life's difficult places and who are missing what God desires for their lives. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but aren't always equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction, pornography, infidelity, anxiety, anger, fear, depression, and hurts from the past. Do you ever find yourself feeling anxious, fearful, angry, or even depressed in your everyday life or ministry? Or as a leader in your ministry, do you want to be better equipped to walk with those around you who are struggling? We're partnering with New Life Ministries to provide resources, help, and support for you in any season you face so you are best equipped to serve and lead your ministry. Look for more info to come and click the link in our bio to discover more ways that New Life Ministries can help. Well, we have a couple of really good ones here. And this first one is our heart being in it enough?
Ooh. I feel like we're coming out swinging on this one.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to say first, because I know exactly where some people are probably going in their minds. We're not devaluing by answering this question. We're not overvaluing or devaluing. It's not should your heart be in it.
Yeah.
Is your heart being in it enough?
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think, it is a little punchy. It's a little punchy to consider. But I mean, Brian, we go back to what we were just talking about, right? When back in the day, you didn't have all these resources. Yeah. You didn't have any crutches to lean on. And I was talking about like the requirement of being present in those moments and how much more present you could be because what you were doing, playing or singing or otherwise, you knew what was coming. It was internalized, and you were ready to meet the challenge, to meet the day, no matter what it took. I mean, what's your answer to that question, Brian? I'm gonna throw you in the hot seat a bit and say, is our heart being in it enough?
I think it has to be both. And I mean, do you want your heart in it? Of course.
Yes.
Of course you do. But you also want to, I mean, Colossians 3, whatever you do, work at it with all your heart.
Yes.
As working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you'll receive an inheritance. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart. So you want it to be, it's your offering. We want to offer the best that we have. And, I think you have said on here before, that's kind of scalable, like, it's going to look different. The best you have to offer is going to look different from person to person,
yes,
from place to place. But, honoring the Lord by offering your best, but golly, you of course you want your heart to be in it, but man, okay. So can you say your heart is in it if you're not working in it?
I don't know. Would your spouse say your heart was in your marriage if you were never spending any time, never going on any dates, never having any conversations, never working on it? How long would my heart is in it fix the issues? Probably not very long.
Probably not very long. That old thing where I told her I loved her, and if it ever changes, I'll let you know, or whatever.
Yes.
You got to be working at that.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, like, so Jesus says, he's talking about, it's I think Matthew 6 or so, around there. Don't quote me, but I think it's somewhere around Matthew 6, where he's talking about not storing up yourself treasures on earth where the moth and the rust destroy, but store up in heaven. He says, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And like, so the flip side of that is, if you want to know where your heart is, look at where your treasure is. Look at where you're investing. Look at where your resources are going. And I would say, if you're not putting in resource, if you're not considering it to be a treasured opportunity to do what you and I get to do when we get to serve on the weekends, or whether it's leading worship or in a control room behind a camera, if you're not investing in that thing, then I would agree with you. I don't think we can say our hearts are in it. Maybe we are intending good. We're intending to be invested, but until you're actually putting the time and effort into it, my verse, my go-to verse, even though it's not describing David as a worship leader, for the last 20 years, one of the verses I've kept in my mind, Psalm 78, 72, David shepherded with integrity of heart and led with skillful hands. And I think that winning combo is a prepared heart and prepared hands. Just the easiest way to demonstrate, like, I'm taking what I know, what I believe, and I'm putting it into practice. Because when you put it into practice, you are demonstrating. It's like a follow through. It's a follow through. And I think it's important for us to prepare for our hearts to be prepared and invested. And we demonstrate, as scripture says, like, faith without works is dead. Like, you want me to evaluate your faith. You want to show me your faith? Show me what you're doing with it. Show me how you're putting it into practice. And so, I think it's challenging for all of us, because none of us have enough time. None of us have enough resource. I'm sure there's all kinds of things vying for our attention. But if our yes is going to be yes, then we have to be willing to do the things that are required to show up at the absolute best we can. You're right, Brian. Like you said, the excellence scales.
Yeah.
We have talked about that before, and I always go back to the parable of talents. The master did not scold the person who had 2 for not turning them into 10. It was the only one that got scolded was the one that buried their potential, that buried what they had. Everybody else was given according to their ability, scripture says, and celebrated for their diligence and stewardship of whatever they were given. And so you might not have what you think you could have or should have. But the answer is, what are you going to do with what you do have in your hand right now? How can you double that? How can you increase that? How can you invest in that? So, yeah, that's a great question, and took some courage and vulnerability to even ask that.
It did. Absolutely. I remember when I first started in ministry, I was at a conference, and there's a guy named Ovid Young who was an organist, like high church music composer. And he laid a quote that I think was sort of offhand from him, but I've never forgotten it. And the quote was, "Holy shoddy is still shoddy."
Woo!
I mean, anytime somebody talks to me about, preparation, I always think about that. And it's like, yeah, it is.
Okay, sorry. That's deep.
Yeah, right.
It was, okay. So maybe the unsanctified part of my brain is comparing that to a statement that I had. I was working with a team once in the front of house engineer. I was like, tell me about what you got. And he said, here's the problem. Like, I got all this gear, but a turd rolled in glitter is still a turd. And so when you just said holy shoddy is still shoddy, a turd rolled in glitter, make it look as pretty as you want it to be.
Yeah.
Still a turd. Still going to stink just the same way.
Yeah.
And so you can package this thing however you want. But if you're showing up and you've not put in the time, the effort, you've not done the stewardship that's required, and for the record, we were talking about this earlier. We have all had those moments. We're not talking about one-off experiences. We're talking about patterns here, right? If your treasure is not there, your time, your talent, your ability, if it's not there, your heart is not in it.
Amen. That's such a good,
so don't be a glitter turd.
That would be the title of this one.
I don't know if that's good. That might not make the edit, but it was great. It was great for us in this moment.
Absolutely.
We'll put that on the Patreon or what is it? You got the Patreon. Yeah.
Patreon. Okay. The second DM today is dealing with broadcasted negativity.
Oof.
We've all had that situation where it gets back to you as the leader. Like, hey, I was at a restaurant and the whole next table, man, they were really chewing on like that old, they had pastor for lunch or whatever, when they're chewing on the pastor, or in our case, the worship leader or the production team or whatever it is. And so if you become aware of conversations like that, how do you process and handle that as the leader?
Yeah, that is another. I mean, we're like 2 for 2 on this one. As you're talking, I was even thinking about like the way a lot of the listeners might, like the way we might experience this might be much closer than a member of the congregation. That you might have thought about somebody on your team right now that's kind of broadcasting negativity, kind of taking a more cynical approach. It may be someone that's been wounded in the past. And so you start something new and they're like, yeah, it's never going to change. It's always going to be this. And they might be saying that in like team meetings. They might be saying that in the green room. They might be saying that in the lobby. I think that's a hard thing to navigate for us because we care so deeply about what we do. And like, going back to the first question, we're putting our heart and soul into this thing as well. And so to hear it, it's different if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I feel like we need to talk through some of these things versus you catch wind of something or they're in a group setting and it's just that idea of broadcasting it. I think is just genuinely so hurtful and impacting, not just to you as a leader, but to anybody that might be around, because we've probably all been in that situation where somebody's saying something and you're like, ooh, we're going to have to shut this thing down and it's going to be awkward.
Yeah.
There's no way out of the awkwardness of it.
Yeah. And it's not biblical.
It's not.
First of all, it's just, I mean, let's call it out. It just isn't. And so, man, I can remember I was a leader at a church and we had started a new thing that we were doing, and there were growing pains in the beginning. It didn't go well all the time. And so
new things rarely do. Go super smoothly.
I had a team member who was doing what we're talking about here, broadcasting negativity. And it was to the point where I had this person was serving with high school students. And I started to get emails from the parents of the high school students saying, please don't schedule my kid with this person. I don't want them around that. And so, this lady, it's a lady, I shouldn't have even let that part slip, but it was a lady, and she noticed her frequency of being scheduled was dropping a little bit. And so I was walking through the lobby, and she cornered me in front of a room full of people and just kind of dressed me down for not getting scheduled and how she was getting scheduled and all that. And I said, I don't think you want to have this conversation here. And if you want to step over here, and we had another person join us, I'll have it with you. And I was like, look, I got people contacting me, asking me to not schedule their kids with you because of how negative you are.
Yeah.
And if you can't, keep that if you got an issue, you come to me. I'm the guy who makes the decision.
Yeah.
And you come to me and you have that conversation. But if you're having it and it's happening often enough and at a volume where this kid is going home and telling their parents, and then their parents are reaching out to me, like, that's not a casual situation. Like, there's a lot that's gone into that. And so I'd be embarrassed if I were you. And I told her, I said, I think you need to maybe take a break from serving, and then let's talk in a couple months and see how we're all feeling about that. But I don't, we've all served with leaders where the only tool they have in their toolbox is a hammer, and that's no fun at all. I do think there are, let's call it a velvet hammer. I think there are instances like this that might call for a velvet hammer, some strong leadership. Maybe there's some things going on culturally in your context that you need to address, where somebody feels like it's okay to do that in the first place. Have you ever had to walk through something like that?
Yeah. You're talking in all these different situations, kind of plowing through in my mind, some that I handled well, I think, and some that I think I blew it, and I was thinking why in those situations did I blow it? Well, it's because most often I kind of met them at the level that they were at. I think it's really easy for us, especially if we feel justified in our actions, to kind of argue or be dismissive. Or maybe for some of you listening, that the tendency might be to agree. I don't generally have that problem because I'm not conflict averse. I'll say that. Yeah. So my tendency is probably going to be to justify my actions or defend myself or argue with them, and probably to meet them in that heightened emotional state and either defend and argue or kind of acquiesce and agree and kind of turn to coddling or placating is probably the least helpful thing that we can do. The requirement for us as leaders, whether there's someone you lead or not, we have to stay true to that call. And we have to respond the way that we're supposed to, even if we're not getting met with reciprocity. So I'd say resist that urge to argue, dismiss, or even agree with them. And something like, hey, let's Sister Sally, because you said it was Sister. So sorry if Sally, if it's you, that I didn't know, he didn't feed me any information. But Sister Sally, I hear you. I understand. And here's what I can tell. There's a lot of emotion, it seems, behind that.
Yep.
Probably some things that have been kind of stirring in your mind. I also know probably not the best way or time for us to get into this.
Yep.
And so even then gently redirecting that conversation to say, okay, like, why don't we, like you did, can we step to the side?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because number one, I care about you.
Yeah.
Number two, I care about how we're presenting the ministry because,
Absolutely.
Sister Sally, as a member of the body of Christ, like we have a way that the Bible says that we're supposed to engage with each other. I want to honor that. But like resisting that immediacy of defending, arguing, and going, man, I bet this is one more thing. I guess a little bit of empathy. Like, this is one more thing on Sister Sally's list. And I wonder if it doesn't even have anything to do. Sometimes people get upset and they're mad. I mean, it's like all the country song lyrics. You're mad at your wife or husband or whatever, and you go and you slam the door, you kick the dog and accidentally break the handle, all the things. It's like this is like 100 different songs. Some of them probably are in your unusual song requests. But most times people that are like in that negative spin or even in that cynical spin, it's actually a self-defense mechanism that they have acquired because of their fear or because they've been hurt or disappointed, another leader's let them down, or they just might be unhappy with their life. And it's really hard to see the positive or the joy in anything. And so as leaders, if we take time to pause, you can kind of go, I wonder what else, like one of my favorite questions to ask, what else could it be? Like, I wonder what else could be going on in Sister Sally's mind, and assuming, I don't think she'd want to show up that way. And then looking at it as a leader and saying, is there anything I've done that's perpetuated that? Have I let this go on? Have I been tolerating it? Have I been more passive in my approach because I didn't want Sister Sally's I feel like I'm picking on Sister Sally. So let's talk, brother. I don't want to say Bob because it's your older, but now I need another name. Bill, Brother Bill. Brother Bill and Sister Sally. So, Brother Bill, I didn't want his kind of that wrath or attention on me. So have I just kind of been skirting around the issue? There's so many things that can come into play that will kind of help us, regardless of how the other person is showing up, help us disarm that trigger in us that wants to fight or, flight or run away or freeze, whatever, you might get. And just say, okay, I wonder what else could be happening here. How can I redirect this gently? And then if it has happened in a group space, how do I recalibrate this room? How do I make sure that I can speak to, hey, I know that you all just kind of witnessed something. Like, we're not going to make this a big thing. Everybody has moments and times and days. So thank you for your grace.
Yeah.
We don't just kind of let it stay there and force the people around us that we're leading to also sit in that. We kind of take that on as leaders and move. I mean, those are just some things that I'd process. But if you're dealing with that, know you're not alone.
Absolutely.
Because man, I've been that. I've done that before. I've been Brother Bill. Just in a bad, off moment. You're upset and you say something. You're like, man, I wish I hadn't said that in this way, or I wish I hadn't done it in front of that. I wish I hadn't responded to that leader that way in front of the team, and have to go back and make that right, which we have to be willing to do.
Yeah. Man, that's so good, Brian. You bring such wisdom. Thank you. And those are great questions. If you have questions, you got probs that your team is wrestling with, send those in to us. You can DM them to us. You can send us an email, info@worshipleaderprobs.com. And you might hear that on a future episode of the podcast. So send them in. And we're so glad you carved out some time to hang with us for episode 319.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. Remember to hit subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, especially if you're on YouTube. Great time to hit like and subscribe. And then please do us a favor. Go to Apple Podcasts and leave us that 5-star rating with a nice review. That's a huge help for us in spreading the word about the podcast. And thank you as well for following us on all the socials. I'm Brian Taylor, Brian with an I on Instagram. We got Worship Probs on Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and YouTube. Worship Leader Probs on TikTok. And then you can also join the Worship Probs community group on Facebook. And then Worship Leader Probs with no vowels on X, or just look for the hashtag Worship Leader Probs.
Yeah, and we love connecting with you on all the platforms. And we're working in 25 here, they're all going to be kind of different. And so it's great to engage on all of them. And some people who are helping us with that engagement are our friends at Maven Media Productions. There's a link in our bio for Maven, or you can head over to mavenmediaproductions.com. If you need help with the website or social media coaching or some logos, branding, whatever it is, they can help you. They'll do a great job for you. And I know you'll benefit from a connection with Maven. And thanks to my friend Scott Hoke for our intro. Guys, we love you so much. Thanks so much for tuning in to episode 319. Until next time, deuces.
Bye for now, y'all.